All right, Raiders fans, let's get into it because there's a lot to unpack after what has been a brutal couple of weeks for this team. Every time you think the silver and black are ready to take that next step forward, they find a way to stumble. And it always seems to come back to the same handful of issues: the offensive line, the play calling, and the way the coaching staff is handling personnel. You watch this team line up week after week, and it feels like we're stuck running the same sets out of pistol formation, trying to force zone looks that just don't fit the strengths of the guys we actually have on the roster. The spacing on routes looks off, and it gives defenses way too easy of time anticipating what's coming. Fans at home can see it plain as day, so you wonder what's going on inside the building if the same mistakes keep piling up without adjustments. And speaking of adjustments, when you listen to the way this staff talks about the team, it almost sounds like they're still in the evaluation phase, like they've only been working with this group for a couple of weeks. But that's not reality. This staff has been here long enough to know what pieces they have, and yet the identity of the offense and defense looks shaky. On defense, Patrick Graham has leaned conservative, and while bend but don't break can work, it's only useful when you have the pass rush and coverage talent to make it sustainable. Too often we're sitting back in vanilla looks and letting opposing quarterbacks get comfortable. Where are the disguised blitzes? Where's the creativity? Raiders fans have been screaming for more aggressiveness, but the scheme continues to play it safe while results keep disappointing. Now, the big question that keeps buzzing around Raider Nation is what happens with players like Jackson Powers-Johnson and Jakobi Meyers. Trade rumors have already started swirling, and while Meyers probably isn't moving anytime soon because of his chemistry with Geno, JPJ feels like a different story. It's crazy because by most accounts he's one of the best linemen on this roster, a guy who could easily anchor the interior for years. But the way this staff has handled him, it feels like there's some underlying tension we're not seeing. You hear the coaches talk, and the explanations don't match the tape. Why is JPJ the one constantly being questioned for his spot when players clearly performing worse continue to get opportunities? That disconnect is what has fans scratching their heads and losing trust in the process. And let's not act like this offensive line can afford to sideline talent. Without JPJ, confidence in this group might not even register higher than a 1 on a scale of 10. That's how bad it's been. Insert him, and maybe you get to a 4 because at least he brings some fight, some physicality that has been sorely missing. Right now, Dylan Parham is getting bullied, Jordan Meredith is getting pushed around, DJ Glaze hasn't looked ready. There's no nastiness, no identity up front, and without that, everything else falls apart. The run game doesn't click, the quarterback doesn't have time, and the entire offense looks disjointed. It all starts in the trenches, and if you don't value that, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's what makes this past draft so frustrating. The Raiders invested in a high pick at right tackle with Jenny, which in itself is fine because you need to protect your quarterback. But when that's your only real move on the line and you simultaneously push out your second-best defensive lineman, it feels reckless. It feels like malpractice. Drafting a tackle is only half the solution if you don't surround him with stability and experience. Instead, it's like this team put all their eggs in one basket and expected it to magically work. And here we are, 3 weeks into the season, looking like a unit that is worse than last year. For a franchise with this much history, that should be unacceptable. And then there's the coaching chatter. Pete Carroll has been catching heat, and not just because of the record. Fans are starting to notice those Josh McDaniels vibes, that arrogance where it seems like the coach believes he knows better than anyone else, no matter what the results show. You hear answers to valid questions, and instead of clear reasoning, you get short, emotional responses like absolutely not, and that doesn't inspire confidence. It feels like decisions are being made out of stubbornness rather than strategy, and that is a dangerous game to play in a league as competitive as the NFL. If the words coming out publicly feel empty, it makes you wonder what's being said behind closed doors to the players. That disconnect can break a locker room quickly if it hasn't already. Meanwhile, you look ahead at the schedule, and it doesn't get any easier. Chicago, a team with one of the weakest defensive fronts in football, is on deck. If this line can't look at least competent against the Bears, then who are they going to look competent against? After that, you've got Indianapolis, Tennessee, and then Kansas City in Week 7, And if you don't figure things out by then, the season can spiral fast. The goal has to be getting to 4-3 before the bye week. That's the only way you can still realistically keep playoff hopes alive. But if the same issues keep repeating, if the staff keeps ignoring the obvious problems up front, then it's hard to see this team digging out of the hole. Even the wide receiver room is raising questions. Trey Tucker has been flashing, no doubt, but is he really ready to be the top option? When you look at targets, Myers and Brock Bowers are still the main guys when healthy. Tucker is benefiting from defenses shading coverage elsewhere, but the silver lining is that he's showing growth. He's proving he can be used the right way, and he's earning trust. That's encouraging, but calling him a true WR1 might be premature. This team still needs stability and consistency from its veterans, especially with injuries hovering over players like Michael Mayer. Without him in the lineup, it forces younger names like Dante Thornton into bigger roles, which is both an opportunity and a risk because development takes time. And circling back to the defensive side, rumors are floating about cover 3 becoming a bigger part of the game plan. That can work if you blitz more and keep offenses guessing. But if you just sit back and expect this secondary to hold up for 4 quarters, you're going to get burned. This defense doesn't have a rangy free safety to clean things up, and it doesn't have a consistent pass rush to cover for coverage breakdowns. That means the scheme has to adapt, not just stick stubbornly to what looks good on paper. The Raiders have talent, but talent wasted in the wrong system ends up being invisible on Sundays. The bigger picture here is that Raider Nation is restless. Fans see potential in this roster, but they're tired of the same mistakes, tired of coaches preaching one thing and doing another. They want accountability, they want toughness, and most of all, they want to see a team that plays like it understands what wearing silver and black is supposed to mean. Because right now, the product on the field hasn't matched the pride and passion of the people in the stands, and that gap is only getting harder to ignore. All right, let's keep rolling because the conversations around this team are only getting louder. When you look at Jackson Powers-Johnson, the situation has gone from confusing to downright frustrating. Fans keep asking why he isn't locked into a starting role when the tape shows he's clearly one of the most talented players on that offensive line. You listen to the coaches, and it feels like excuse after excuse, almost like they're searching for reasons to keep him sidelined instead of admitting he's a better option than some of the guys playing right now. The explanations don't add up. If it's about concussion history, then fine, be transparent. But when it sounds like vague competition talk while inferior linemen get starting snaps, you can't blame people for believing there's something deeper going on. And if that's the case, trade rumors will only continue to swirl. Because let's be real, if his staff doesn't value him, other teams will. A young center with Pro Bowl potential doesn't come around often, and rival executives are well aware of that. The idea of moving on from him might seem insane to fans, but in the NFL, once a coaching staff starts showing cracks in its trust, you can almost feel the writing on the wall. Imagine him lining up for another team, bringing that nasty edge that this line is currently missing. It would be a brutal reminder of what the Raiders let slip away. And that's why so many in Raider Nation are on edge. They don't want to sit through another cycle of talented draft picks being mismanaged, only to flourish elsewhere, while this team keeps rebuilding year after year. The offensive line is at the heart of it all, and when you look at Alex Kappa holding down a spot over JPJ, it raises eyebrows. Kappa is a veteran, yes, but he's not outplaying JPJ in practice or games. The staff seems determined to prove a point rather than field the best lineup. And that's where frustration grows into anger. Because every drive that stalls, every sack allowed, every stuffed run, fans are connecting the dots back to these decisions. You don't bench one of your strongest assets just to stick to a philosophy. Football isn't about proving stubbornness. It's about winning. And winning is the one thing Raider Nation is desperate to see. Pete Carroll has built a reputation as a fiery leader, but right now, that fire feels more like smoke. The early record isn't catastrophic, but it's the patterns that make people nervous. Empty answers and pressers, questionable rotations, and a sense that the team doesn't really know its own identity. That's why you hear the Josh McDaniels comparisons. It's not about style, it's about ego. Coaches who convince themselves they see something no one else does while ignoring the obvious usually don't last long, and Raider fans have seen enough of that script already. The fan base isn't blind to the bigger AFC picture either. Watching the division right now, it's hard to imagine multiple AFC West teams in the playoffs. The Broncos are struggling, the Raiders are stumbling, and even the Chiefs don't look invincible this year. The Chargers appear like the most stable of the group, but that doesn't mean the division will suddenly send 3 teams into the postseason. The reality is the Raiders need to scrap for every win they can get just to stay relevant, and that urgency doesn't seem to match the way the coaching staff is handling things. You can't play it safe when a margin for error is this small. On the bright side, there are individual players stepping up. Trey Tucker continues to show promise, and even though he might not be the true WR1 yet, his growth is a sign that this offense has weapons waiting to be unlocked. The problem is consistency. Jacoby Myers is still drawing the bulk of the targets, and when Brock Bowers is healthy, he's a central piece too. Tucker benefits from that, but if defenses start focusing on him more, he has to prove he can still win those matchups. That's the next step in his development, and Raider fans will be watching closely to see if he's ready for it. Then there's the Michael Mayer situation. Injuries are already creeping in, and when a young tight end misses practice this often, you can almost count him out for Sunday. That forces adjustments, whether it's giving Dante Thornton more opportunities or leaning on role players like Ian Thomas. And while those guys can step in, it changes the structure of the offense. More 3-wide sets, less reliance on tight ends, and more pressure on the receivers to create separation. It's not necessarily a disaster, but it's another example of how fragile the current setup feels. One missing piece forces a ripple effect, and that comes back to depth. Depth is exactly what's lacking on the offensive line, too. Fans keep asking why only JPJ is being treated like he's fighting for his job while others coast. Where's the accountability for guys like Glaze, Meredith, and Parham? Why aren't they rotating or being challenged in the same way? That double standard is what drives fans crazy. It feels personal, like someone is trying to make a statement at JPJ's expense. And while nobody outside the building knows the full story, the optics are terrible. When the team's best lineman is treated like the weakest link, the credibility of the staff takes a hit. All of this frustration is amplified because Raider Nation cares. This isn't a fan base that shrugs off mediocrity. They demand fight, they demand pride, and they demand accountability. That's why hearing Pete Carroll brush off concerns with empty phrases doesn't fly. This isn't just about wins and losses. It's about showing growth, showing direction. Right now, it looks like a team spinning its wheels. And when you're asking fans to invest their hearts and time, spinning wheels just isn't enough. The locker room dynamic is also in question. When a coach dismisses valid concerns with emotional answers, you wonder what's being said to the players. Are they buying in? Are they frustrated too? When trust erodes, even a small crack can split a locker room wide open. And in a league as cutthroat as the NFL, once you lose that belief, it's almost impossible to claw it back. Raider Nation has been through enough rebuilds and letdowns to recognize the warning signs, and they're watching closely. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL world is buzzing after what could be one of the most jaw-dropping roster moves in recent memory. The Las Vegas Raiders have reportedly struck deals for wide receiver Xavier Worthy and cornerback Marcus Williams, creating what insiders are already calling the fastest defensive unit in the league. Sources close to the organization say the move is part of a calculated strategy to turn the Raiders into a lightning-fast, high-octane team that could redefine how opponents approach the game. Worthy, known for his blazing speed and sharp route running, instantly elevates any passing attack. Draft analysts have compared his acceleration and top-end speed to some of the fastest receivers the NFL has ever seen, making him a nightmare for defensive backs. Meanwhile, Williams brings not only elite coverage skills, but also unmatched agility and field awareness, giving the Raiders a dual-threat presence in both offense and defense. Rumors suggest that the front office sees these additions as the missing puzzle pieces to finally make Las Vegas a perennial contender, blending raw athleticism with precision execution. Fans and commentators alike are already speculating about how this could change the Raiders' offensive philosophy. Some insiders claim the team is moving toward a vertically aggressive attack, aiming to exploit defensive mismatches with sheer speed. Imagine Worthy streaking past defenders on deep routes, while Williams' presence opens up opportunities for creative schemes. The whispers in league circles hint that coaches are considering radical changes to formations, possibly even reimagining the quarterback's role to fully utilize this new, electrifying talent. While nothing is official yet, the excitement is palpable. Social media is alight with debates. Can this duo really turn the Raiders into the fastest team in the NFL? Will rival teams scramble to adjust before the season begins? One thing is certain. If the rumors hold true, Las Vegas may be on the verge of a season unlike any other, where speed, strategy, and sheer audacity collide to create a football spectacle fans won't soon forget. The NFL, it seems, is about to get a little bit faster and a lot more interesting. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.